The ADP data we posted on the site yesterday, I think is most useful if we are predicting if you should be buying high or selling low on a second year player. Now, typically, I always like going through and saying, oh, okay, if a player did well in year one, they're probably going to do well in year two. Typically, we've seen people say buy high, sell low, and those guys like Jackson Smith-Njigba, Quentin Johnston, that bust year one, that lose value, they have no shot at regaining it. The data in this is very surprising. It's very different from running back to wide receiver. We're going to break it down in 4 big ways and then look at it in 2 different buckets. We're going to be looking at running backs that lost value from their rookie season to their second year. We're going to be looking at running backs that gain value from their rookie season to their second year. Same thing at the wide receiver position. And in those individual groups, we're going to see if they continued to lose value or continued to gain value, or maybe course corrected where they lost value initially, but then did better in year 3. I know this is probably very confusing. Hopefully when we lay this out, it's going to be easy to understand. The first example let's look at are going to be running backs that lost value where they had an ADP in year 2 lower than what they were their rookie season. So examples of guys like this would be Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Darius Geis, Rashad Penny, Bishop Sankey, TJ Yeldon, where you can see Clyde Edwards-Helaire, his ADP year 1, his rookie season was already at 13. And in year 2, he moved down to 25. Obviously, not a good rookie season. I don't think anybody's going to deny that. And then he continued to lose value in year 3, or going into year 3 that June, he had an ADP of 74. So we are going to put him in the bucket that he was down on value in year 2 and was down even more on value in year 3. And if we're going to go through and look at how many players fit this mold at the running back position, I mean, you had about, I want to say 28 guys here with CEH, Darius Geis, Rashad Penny, Bishop Sankey, TJ Yeldon, Royce Freeman, Trey Sermon, Darrell Henderson, Samaje Perine, Kenneth Dixon, Keyshawn Vaughn, Michael Carter, Justice Hill, Terrence West, David Cobb. These are all the rookies going back to 2014. The reason we go back that far is, one, that's when I first started playing Dynasty. So, I mean, I can pretty much remember all these guys in their respective careers. 2, this ADP data is coming from Ryan McDowell at DLF. So we are just tracking as far back as they have, and that is since 2014. But nonetheless, you had about 28 of those running backs that lost value after their rookie season continue to lose value going into year 3. However, if we are looking at the guys that lost value after their rookie season, but actually then took a step up, you're looking at a list of about 14 names. The main guys on this, Melvin Gordon, Kenneth Walker, Travis Etienne, David Montgomery. I mean, you have some guys that are like marginal. I don't know what we should have done with players like this. Say Ronald Jones went from 50 down to 103, then up to 101. So he kind of stayed neutral. So for the sake of it, we're going to stay honest to what we say, and we're just going to throw him on here as if he gained value in year 3, but really didn't. But nonetheless, you'll see more times than not that running back that lost value after their rookie season is going to continue to lose value going into the next year. It's by no means a guarantee. It's going to be very surprising when pull up wide receiver and compare it with this, but they're about twice as likely to lose value going into year 3 than they are to gain value going into year 3 if they had a disappointing rookie year campaign. Now, if we go over to the 2024 rookie running backs, that their ADP now on DLF is lower than what it was back last June. You had Bijan Robinson. I don't think we should include Bijan in this. This isn't a CEH situation where he had a horrible rookie season, lost a considerable amount of value. He fell from 4 to 7, right? So you're falling from 4 to 7. It's not really like you're falling much at all. I mean, hell, we can pull up flogfantasy.com and look at our community rankings real quick. And the community rankings on flogfantasy.com are completely free if any of y'all ever want to pull them up. But if we pull it up from a one quarterback perspective, because that's what this ADP is one QB. I mean, right now, the community rankings have Bijan Robinson at 5. So it's not like he really lost value. I don't really want to look at him. The main guys are Kondre Miller and Tank Bigsby. If you're looking at these two running backs, More likely than not, based off the historical data, these are going to be players that continue to lose value going into year 3. And I mean, I am fine making that bet as well. I'm not sitting here saying that Miller or Bigsby are going to have great seasons. If you look at Miller, I didn't really like him as a prospect. I understand he got injured his rookie season, but I mean, even going forward, it's not a good situation in New Orleans. And then with Bigsby, they just bring back Dearness Johnson. So, I mean, Dane Bigsby at best is like the running back 3 in Jacksonville. So, yeah, I think it's safe to say that Miller, Bigsby, they're not going to be guys that we are buying low on. Now, what is very, very interesting here, going over to the running backs that gained value their rookie season and going into year 3. These are guys like Saquon, Zeke, Breece Hall, Jonathan Taylor, Joe Mixon, CMC, DeAndre Swift, Nick Chubb, Alvin Kamara, Rashad White, David Johnson, AJ Dillon. These are guys that just started low and continue to rise through the first 3 years of their careers respectively. It is about half the size of the running backs that after they gain value in year 1, they lost value going into year 3. If you look at this list, you have Najee, Fournette, Gurley. Keep in mind, Gurley had a very weird year 2. It was a horrible offense for the Rams, and maybe not the best example. But Dobbins, Jacobs, Akers, Javonte, Dalvin, Sony, Miles Sanders, Kerryon Johnson, Carlos Hyde. A lot of these running backs had strong rookie seasons. They gained in value going into year 2, and then they fell from that new high point into year 3. So what's very interesting is if we try not to look at the exact trends of like, oh, okay, this player gained in value, so he's likely to continue to gain, or he lost value, so he's likely to continue to lose. That's not the case at running back. The case at running back should be the vast majority of players lose value going into year 3 in comparison to where they are valued as second-year options. Because even the guys that gain value as a rookie, they were more likely to lose value going into year 3 at the running back position. I mean, similar to the guys who lost value as a rookie, they were more likely to lose value going into year 3 at running back as well. And in both instances, it's about the same rate. It's about a 2x probability. So if you were looking at this, I mean, this data can be very telling in that it's more likely for rookie running backs to gain value after their rookie season than rookie wide receivers, historically speaking. But also, it's more likely for them to lose value going into year 3. So maybe you're drafting these rookies aggressively, but after they flash with their rookie seasons, you're looking to sell them high. I mean, running backs that are up on value compared to their rookie years now include Jahmyr Gibbs, Zach Charbonnet, Devon Achane, Roschon Johnson. This data was right before DeAndre Swift signed, so I'm sure Roschon's going to be down. You can throw him on the other list. And then Tajee Spears. I mean, if I'm looking at this, I'm not going to be telling anybody to sell high on Jahmyr Gibbs. I think Gibbs is a locked and loaded top 3 running back in Dynasty based off the investment that the team has into him, based off his pedigree, his receiving upside. I mean, he looks very similar to the guys that you had gaining value going into year 3. I mean, the cream of the crop. I mean, the guys at the very, very top that had no question marks. So I'm not going to be saying to sell high on Jahmyr Gibbs. But when you go over to Devon Achane, when you go over to like Tajee Spears, I think Achane's a good example of a running back that obviously flashes his rookie season, is the most efficient running back in the NFL, and it's not even remotely close, and nobody comes close to him. Yet he still has red flags. The red flags he had coming out of school still aren't answered. We don't know if he is going to be able to be a 3-down back given his size. Now, I've been saying to sell Achane for quite some time. I mean, you remember the post we made on flockfantasy.com back like halfway through the season, making the case to sell Devon Achane in Dynasty. I think this data just kind of proves it, in that when these players see that big time spike after their rookie season at the running back position, a lot of times you can look to pivot off them and sell high. Now, of course, if you want to check out my Devon Achane article from back then, if you want to check out all my Dynasty Fantasy Football rankings, I mean, our Dynasty Trade Calculator, we have a very cool tool coming for y'all soon. You can find it all on flockfantasy.com. It's pretty much where all your favorite Dynasty creators are. And if you use code FLOCK on flockfantasy.com, you're going to get 30% off any sub Plus, yours truly will break down your Dynasty Fantasy Football team in a podcast. And we're posting all this data on the site as well. Now, let's go over to wide receiver, because wide receiver is so different than what you have at running back. Running back, the big takeaway is just sell those guys going into year 3, buy them as rookies. Wide receiver, these trends are freaking nuts. Well, first, we're going to be looking at the wide receivers that are losing value. These are guys that had a worse rookie season than expected. They lost value going into year 2, and what they did in year 3. I mean, the list of these players are Corey Davis, Laquan Treadwell, Corey Coleman, Treylon Burks, Josh Dotson, N'Keal Harry. I think y'all understand what a wide receiver bust looks like. But if we are looking at the guys that lost value after their rookie season and then bounced back, gained value going into year 3, you have a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 players since 2014. Now, we did make the cutoff 150 just so we weren't having to look at 4th round picks, because 4th round picks, it's not like you can lose value really. But nonetheless, you had 10 guys, and they were Judy, and Judy didn't even really gain much value, went from 58 to 51. Mike Williams went to 84 to 50. Sterling Shepard didn't really gain much value, 84 to 80. Christian Kirk didn't really gain much value, 79 to 76. Like, if you remove those guys that kind of stayed the same and just marginally got better, really the only guys that gained a considerable amount were Mike Williams, Michael Pittman, Michael Gallup, Will Fuller, Zay Jones, Curtis Samuel, Chris Conley. Whereas if we cross-reference this with the wide receivers that lost value after their rookie season, that continue to lose value going into year 3, this is a massive, massive list. You have about 39 guys here, ranging from Corey Davis to Sky Moore to John Ross to Jalen Strong to Anthony Miller to David Bell to Hakeem Butler to Alec Pierce. So many freaking names. It goes to show that, unlike the running back position, there's a very clear trend here. These wide receivers that disappoint year 1, once in a blue moon, they'll bounce back. But if they begin losing their value, you shouldn't be the guy that goes out there and tries to buy low on them. Now, of course, this is overarching data. This is going to help us create guidelines and create rules. We can't just paint everybody with the same brush. So when we go over to the 2024 wide receivers and you look at the guys that lost value, you had Jackson Smith-Njigba, Quentin Johnston, Jonathan Mingo, Marvin Mims, Jalen Hyatt. And if you want to sit here and go, well, Mason, Jackson Smith-Njigba is different. He's going to be the next Michael Pittman. He's going to be the next Mike Williams. He's actually going to gain a considerable amount of value going into year 3, even though he disappointed in his rookie season. I'm fine as long as you understand that you are betting against the historical data. If you want to say, well, Mason, JSN had to compete with DK Metcalf, he had to compete with Tyler Lockett, I completely understand where you're coming from. And yes, maybe you go out there and give this man the benefit of the doubt. I loved him as a prospect. I just want to reiterate something that we were saying very early on in the offseason and getting so much hate for, where if you're able to take a player like that, that's not necessarily on the best trend, and you don't have to sell him low, but you can still pivot off. And remember, early in the offseason, I don't know if you can do it anymore, you're able to sell JSN for the 106 and go take Rome. You were able to go get a wide receiver that was going to go top 10 in the NFL draft this year and say, okay, well, maybe JSN bounces back, but instead of betting against the historical data, why don't we just have an option that can explode in value year 1? Because we pull this data up, what you see is wide receivers that explode in value in year 1, they're likely to continue to increase going into year 3. Now, it isn't like losing value. If you lose value year 1, you're pretty much guaranteed to lose value going into year 3 at wide receiver. Wide receiver is a little bit different in gaining value. You're slightly more likely to continue to gain value than you are to take a step backwards. But we have seen guys gain a bit, then take a step back, such as like Devontae Parker, Dorial Green-Beckham, Devontae Adams. Obviously, Adams ended up working out, but Rashad Bateman, Christian Watson, Jahan Dotson, Elijah Moore, McCole Hardman, Devin Funchess, Deebo Samuel, Laviska Shenault. We have a list of names of these guys that went from losing value year 1 to bouncing back That went from gaining value year 1 to then losing value in year 3. But the list of guys that gain value year 1 and continued that upwards trajectory is a little bit larger. We have Amari, Sammy Watkins, Mike Evans, Jamar Chase, Brandon Cooks, CeeDee Lamb, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Justin Jefferson, DJ Moore, Devonta Smith, Michael Thomas, Jalen Waddle, Calvin Ridley, DK Metcalf, AJ Brown, Odell. So many guys. And what's very important to see as well is if we're going to cross-reference that list of guys that lost value at the wide receiver position year 1, by the time we got to year 3, the highest ranked option was Michael Pittman. So out of all wide receivers that lost value as rookies, Michael Pittman was the best case scenario of what we've seen since 2014. Maybe JSN can be better than Michael Pittman, has been, but that is pretty much the ceiling we've seen over the past decade. Whereas all those guys that turn into elite wide receiver once, whether it's Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, DJ Moore, Michael Thomas, AJ Brown, every single one of those guys that by the time you get to year 3, they are a round 1 starter pick, they gain value year 1. We hadn't seen the rookie season disappointment followed up with the insane elite year 2. It just hasn't ever happened. Now, going over to what we have with some of these players that did gain value at the wide receiver position that, historically speaking, have access to that crazy ceiling that could continue to rise in value. Jordan Addison, y'all know I loved Addison as a buy early on in the offseason. Painful that you no longer have Cousins. It's harder to say it now. I still love the player and I still will pick him up on the cheap, but it's hard to be as adamant as we were, and it's not nearly as a for sure thing. Zay Flowers, Jaden Reed, Rashee Rice, as well as Josh Downs. So those are going to be the year 2 wide receivers that are on the upwards trend. And yeah, I mean, historically speaking, it's been a pretty good bet to go out there and buy high on those wide receivers. Now, of course, like I said, just because that's what the historical data says, it doesn't mean that you should paint everybody with the same brush and go and treat every single player there as the same. They're not all buys. It's going to be up to you to break them down individually, figure out which guys you like, figure out which guys you want to go after, and very similar to maybe buying low on those wide receivers like JSN or Quentin Johnston that lost value, but you just have to understand when you are buying high on a rookie wide receiver, when you are buying low on a rookie wide receiver, what is the historical data? What is the historical expectation? Because that can give you more information to make a better decision, which is all we're trying to do. And then going over to running back, like I said, it's very surprising that it doesn't follow the same path at wide receiver at all. Running back, doesn't matter if you lose value year 1 or gain value year 1, you're pretty likely to lose value going into year 3. So those second year guys are potentially good sell high candidates. Dependent. I mean, if you go through and maybe move off of like Devon Achane and pick up a couple first round picks and then hit the reset button by, say, drafting like Brian Thomas Jr. this year and then picking up an additional 2025 first and then drafting another rookie running back there and trying to hit on those rookie running backs, repeat the cycle and sell those guys high. Could be something that you look at doing. But I hope this video was able to help you out. I thought it was very telling. I thought that it was very informative. But if you liked it, hit that like, subscribe, Play Dynasty. And of course, if you want to check out all this data, I posted all the sheets on flogfantasy.com. You can find it, description, comment section, promo code FLOCK. We get you 30% off any sub. Plus, with code FLOCK, yours truly will break down your Dynasty Fantasy Football team with the podcast. But that's all I got for you. Appreciate you. Hope you have a great day and hope we get to see you out with the video tomorrow.